trade would directly aid an enemy of this Constitution. So you can, under this statement, prohibit trade with Communist China, because that money is going to flow into the coffers of people making weapons that they have directly stated, we will bury you someday. But you shall not restrict people's choices. They can buy anything on the market, licensed or not. That's one of your fundamental rights, unless you cede part of that in a citizenship document, which I don't recommend that you do. I would rather people have the full choice to buy unlicensed, unregulated medical service, unlicensed drugs. I want people to have the full choice. Yes, they have to take the consequences, and government does have a right to try to investigate when there are dangerous things. But with people with the knowledge of those risks can still make the choice to buy those things. Competition for sales and services shall never be deemed direct or harmful interference or monopolistic as long as coercion or collusion to limit choice is not present. That has to do with language to stop, to allow for private, the freedom of to compete and to join with other companies in competition as long as you don't have collusion. If you can prove collusion, such as Standard Oil did to go in and take over, drop the price below their cost to kill competition, and that was an actual process that you could document in law and prosecute. But generally speaking, true monopoly in the sense that you're the best and you're the cheapest can't be enjoined or stopped by government. No law shall be enacted mandating or regulating or determining prices, wages, rates, worker benefits, or worker conditions, nor shall the government pay any price supports, wage supports, or subsidies. Though laws may be enacted that hold employers liable for damages for working conditions that prove harmful or an imminent threat to employers. That one paragraph completely turns on its head all of the modern evils of government regulation and employment. You just can't touch people's ability to determine prices, wages, and rates, and people have the ability to hire and fire at will. Once they make contracts to induce people to come on board, they have to obey those things. And the government can hold companies liable for damages under working conditions, and they can actually prohibit certain working conditions that are an imminent threat to life. Now, imminent threat is the only area of law that we allow governments to have what we call an a priori. It means prior to damage, a priori intervention in people's lives. Driving while under the influence is an appropriate a priori restriction of people. They don't have the right to drink and drive because they become an imminent threat, which you must stop before. You have the right to stop before someone actually crashes and kills someone. Well, these are just some examples of how I would suggest you tighten up legal language. I would hope that you would say, when you look at the general constitutional language, as wonderful and good as the principles upon it were based, when you look at what would I rather defend my rights for, which language, you would pick the tighter legal language. So I'm making the case that we do this process. We start to take the next few years of great peace that we might have, of peace that we might have left, before wars and tribulations come upon us, to be able to hammer out a greater document of protection based upon the principles of the great founding fathers and the Constitution which they gave us. We are capable of doing it. We have the people that are like-minded, that have the great spirit of liberty, just as our founders to do. But we will cheat ourselves and be woefully unprepared if we do not prepare for a takedown at the same time that we're preparing to defend our liberties within the existing system. In other words, you've got to have a dual-track approach. You should also be prepared for war, much as we hate the fact that it might come upon us. If we're sitting here defending the Constitution and not prepared to survive the war that they may bring upon us, we won't be able to fight for a greater day at the very end. So I realize that some of the things that I have suggested to you today are very different. In doing so, I do not wish to cast aspersion upon any of the efforts of the well-meaning people who have defended the Constitution, that are continuing to defend it with these many fine organizations out in the lobby that have many wonderful things. There's still a great place for that. We ought to use the principles of the Constitution to train our neighbors. We ought to continue all of these efforts. My only suggestion is do not teach them to preclude that we're not capable of improving and changing and working for a better language, because I think we have to be careful to do whatever it takes to preserve liberty, should we have that opportunity sometime in the future. This is the end of my basic presentation. I'm going to take a few questions now and want to thank you for the time that you've given me.